The creators of the Rings of Power, as well as the actors, I genuinely believe hate Tolkien, and this is why. Tolkien, as a writer, is the backbone of modern fantasy alongside Robert E. Howard. I've talked about this before, you can find it in other videos. On the other side of it, they have gone out of their way not only to obliterate the legacy of Tolkien, but to completely erase his work. Lord of the Rings of Power, cast confirm, show aims to erase Tolkien for the sake of modernity. Watching that whole panel with them was a horrendous shit show. They had no clue what they were talking about, they couldn't string a sentence together. The virtue signalling has been off the charts, and watching people fornicate over this show as if it's the next best thing since sliced bread is absolutely ridiculous. This show is not representative of Tolkien's work, and this is why. They view Tolkien as problematic. Because they cannot virtue signal for Tolkien. He is not some POC content creator, he is not anything other than a guy that wrote a fantasy novel about Britain, about Anglo-Saxon, about the Normans, about the Vikings, about Britain. And that's the fundamental thing here. Cultural appropriation and cultural destruction is okay as long as it's Western history, apparently. And we're seeing it with this. We're seeing a work of great value, the backbone of modern fantasy, ripped apart and destroyed by these people who have no clue. They brought in the failed writer that is Tolkien's grandson, of all people, to back this, which is an absolutely worst thing you could do. No. On the other side of it, you end up with this situation where they had no interest in creating this. They want to talk about identity politics. They want to make it about race. They want to make it about something it isn't. They've already rewritten character backstories, rewritten Tolkien's work. They talk about writing the book that Tolkien never wrote, but really they've just rewritten his work. This bears no resemblance to anything. In terms of characterization, in terms of story structure, in terms of timeline. They're condensing the Second Age down from thousands of years into something that's almost, a few years? There's characters alive at this point in this show that would never have met. They're going to places they would never have been, and they are often separated by thousands of years. This is a ridiculous show, and it goes to show that these people have no interest in the legacy of Tolkien or his creation. And I know, whenever I do a video on Lord of the Rings, someone seems to keep reporting them. Go away, I know who you are. On the other side of it, you have a fundamental backbone of literature being obliterated, having its soul stripped out for the sake of money. They are going to turn Lord of the Rings into Star Wars. They are going to milk it until it's a dead cow laying there, still having its milk sucked out. This show is going to be a disaster, and you know what? They're going to blame the fans, because the fans are the ists and the phobes, because, we don't want Tolkien destroyed, and I'm going to say something else that's controversial. Gatekeeping can be a good thing. This show bears no resemblance to Tolkien's work. It also bears no resemblance to anything Peter Jackson did. And don't get me wrong, I understand changes for the sake of storytelling. It's a thing. Sometimes things need to be slightly condensed or characters need to be moved around just slightly. But they haven't done that in this case. They didn't do what Peter Jackson did. We're respecting the original work and keeping it as close as possible, while changing things for the sake of film. Film versus book are two massively different things. They have gutted it. They've taken characters, they've taken scenarios, they have rewritten history of Middle-earth, and this show is a disaster waiting to happen, and we're the ones that are going to get the blame when it's an expensive show. It is the most expensive show in history. Yet, where is the budget? The costumes look cheap. BBC's Merlin had better costumes. Don't print chainmail on the fabric, it's simple, right? But all the stuff going on backstage, from firing the Tolkien expert because he disagreed with what they were doing, hiring people that have absolutely no clue what they're doing, with no CV behind them, first-time filmmakers, to give them this big, epic thing and destroy it. They had no interest in creating a Lord of the Rings show. They had no interest in that. They wanted the names, they wanted the IP, and they genuinely hate Tolkien's work. They love the aesthetics of Tolkien's work. That is the thing. They do love the aesthetics of Tolkien's work, but they don't love Tolkien's work. You can't have strong male characters in 2022. All men in media seem to be reduced to a joke or a punchline. You cannot have a hero's journey. You can't have female characters that are vulnerable. You can't have a female character that isn't angry at the world for no apparent reason. This show is a mess. The creators genuinely hate Tolkien. The actors are completely shilling for this show, and it is a sad state of affairs. I will get back to my normal content, but right now, like I said, this is the gift horse that just won't die. But by the time Amazon are finished with it, it's going to be Star Wars.